Hi, this is RENSEP, the research network for the study of esoteric practices. This episode is part of the series Science and the Esoteric, where we explore the relation, discourse, and intersections between these two fields of experiential knowledge. Throughout history, scientific inquiry and esoteric practices have often been viewed as mutually exclusive domains, with science relying on empirical evidence and experimentation, while esoteric practices emphasize mystical, spiritual, and intuitive aspects of knowledge. However, as we will see in this series, the relationship between two seemingly different areas of study is far more complex than a simple dichotomy. From alchemy to astrology, from mesmerism to quantum mysticism, science and the esoteric have intersected in various ways, with each informing and influencing the other. In this episode, we will talk about the key themes found in the book The Scientification of Religion, an historical study of discursive change from the 1800 to 2000 by Koku von Stuckrad, a text that explores the relationship between science and religion over the past 2 centuries and how this has affected both disciplines. The scientification of religion is the process of applying more and more scientific methods and ideas to religious phenomena. This happened when people in society started to see science as a better way to validate cultural products. Stuckrad argues that the scientific study of religion has often been driven by a desire to explain and rationalize religious phenomena. This has led to a reductionist approach that overlooks the complexities and nuances of religious experience. The historical roots of the scientification of religion lie in the Enlightenment era of the 18th century, where there was a growing emphasis on reason, empirical observation, and critical inquiry. This led to the development of the modern scientific method, which had a profound impact on religious thought and practice. In the 19th century, the discipline of comparative religion emerged, which sought to understand different religious traditions by comparing and contrasting their beliefs, practices, and rituals. This approach was heavily influenced by the evolutionary theories of Charles Darwin, which suggested that all living organisms, including humans, had evolved over time through natural selection. During the 20th century, the scientific study of religion continued to evolve, with the emergence of new fields such as sociology of religion, psychology of religion, and neuroscience of religion. These fields sought to use scientific methods to understand the social, psychological, and neurobiological foundations of religious beliefs and practices. Von Stuckrad challenges the view that science and religion are inherently incompatible and suggests that they can be understood as complementary and mutually enriching domains of human experience. He argues that the conflict between science and religion is often based on misunderstandings and misconceptions about the nature of both domains. Now, let's explore some examples of scientification of religion or of esoteric practices. Ever since psychology was elected to the rank of academic discipline, psychologizing elements of esoteric practices helps practitioners embed them into a dominant cultural framework that values scientific validation. So, gods and spirits may become archetypes that elicit hidden and powerful aspects of the self instead of ontologically existing and independent entities. Jungian psychology also provided a way of understanding the symbolic language of esoteric practices. Jung believed that symbols were a universal language that could be used to express the inner workings of the psyche, and that the symbols of esoteric practices were a reflection of the archetypal patterns of the collective unconscious. By analyzing these symbols and their meanings, practitioners could gain insights into their own unconscious processes and work towards greater self-awareness and personal development. In addition to these psychological insights, Jungian psychology also provided a way of integrating esoteric practices into the broader scientific and cultural context of the modern world. Jung believed that the study of esoteric practices could contribute to a deeper understanding of the human psyche and the nature of consciousness, and that it could help to bridge the gap between science and spirituality. Contemporary paganism and the popularization of shamanic practices in the Western world have also demonstrated how impactful science can be on the birth and development of esoteric traditions and practices. The birth of modern paganism was heavily influenced by academia, particularly in the fields of anthropology, folklore studies, and comparative religion. These academic disciplines provided the historical and cultural context for the revival of pagan traditions and the development of new forms of pagan spirituality. One of the key figures in the academic study of paganism was Margaret Murray, a British archaeologist and folklorist who published several influential books on witchcraft and paganism in the early 20th century. Murray argued that witchcraft was a surviving remnant of an ancient pagan religion that the Christian Church had persecuted. Her work provided a historical and cultural foundation for the development of modern witchcraft and paganism, particularly in the form of Wicca. Other scholars of religion and folklore also played a role in developing modern paganism and shamanism. For example, Mitch Eliade wrote extensively about the symbolism and mythology of ancient religions, as well as about the phenomenon of shamanism in his influential book, Shamanism: Archaic Techniques of Ecstasy. Eliade argued that shamanism was a universal religious phenomenon that could be found in many different cultures and historical periods. The American scholar Joseph Campbell also had a significant influence on the development of modern paganism, particularly through his books on mythology and comparative religion. Western shamanism, also known as transcultural shamanism, was also, as mentioned, influenced by academia, particularly in the fields of anthropology and religious studies. These academic disciplines provided the historical and cultural context for the development of transcultural shamanism and contributed to the creation of new forms of shamanic practice that drew on both ancient traditions and modern spirituality. Besides the already mentioned Eliade, another key figure was Michael Harner, an American anthropologist who founded the Foundation for Shamanic Studies in the 1980s. Harner was an academic and taught at several American universities, drawing on his knowledge of anthropology and shamanism to develop a system of shamanic practice that he called core shamanism. This approach is based on the cross-cultural study of shamanism and involves the use of shamanic techniques such as drumming, trance, and journeying to access spiritual realms and communicate with spirit helpers. Another anthropology PhD who substantially shaped the perception of shamanism on a global scale was Carlos Castañeda, who wrote a series of popular books about his experiences studying with a Yaqui Indian shaman in Mexico. Although Castaneda's work has been criticized for its accuracy and authenticity, it helped to popularize shamanism as a spiritual practice in the Western world and beyond. To sum up, in recent decades, religious and hence esoteric practices have been heavily shaped and influenced by academic research and findings. The growing interest in esoteric practices has also affected scientific research. The scientification of religion gives us some things to think about when it comes to the relationship between science and esoteric practices. It also suggests that these two areas of human experience can be seen as complementary complementary and mutually enriching. We at RENSEP are all for how science and esoteric practices can work together. So make sure to stick around to learn more about our journey through history and traditions in our dedicated series. Also, don't forget to discuss these topics with the practitioners and scholars you've connected with on the RENSEP platform, and let's start discussion in the forum. RENSEP over and out. Until next time, stay esoteric.